Imagine walking into a local car dealership, expecting to see the latest models. Surprisingly, you find vehicles that look like they rolled out of a sci-fi movie. That's precisely what happened to American aviation experts in May 1945 when they opened the doors to German hangars at Lechfeld Airfield. These weren't just any Americans. These were the engineers and pilots who had built the P-51 Mustang, the fighter that helped win the war. They probably thought they knew what cutting edge looked like. Then they saw the Me-262. Everything about this German fighter screamed impossible. No spinning propeller, wings that angled backward like a predator's claws, engine pods that hung beneath the aircraft like metallic fruit. It looked like someone had taken a fighter plane and redesigned it from scratch, using rules nobody else knew existed. The Americans who first encountered the Me-262 didn't just discover a better enemy fighter. They discovered that the future of aviation had already arrived, and they'd been left behind. But here's the twist that changed everything. Instead of making excuses, American engineers swallowed their pride and asked the most important question in technology: how do we make this work even better? The answer to that question didn't just win the Cold War, it built the foundation for every jet aircraft flying today. The first American soldiers to see an Me-262 up close thought someone was playing an elaborate joke. 9 aircraft sat in that German hangar at Lechfeld, but they didn't look like any aeroplane anyone had ever built. Where was the propeller? Where were the familiar bulges of radial engines? Instead, these machines had wings that swept backward at strange angles and smooth pods hanging underneath like sleeping missiles. At 34 feet 9 inches long, with a 41-foot wingspan, the Me-262 was actually larger than most fighters. But somehow it looked faster just sitting still. Every surface seemed designed to slip through the atmosphere, rather than punch through it. But looks were just the beginning of what shocked the Americans. Intelligence reports revealed the stunning truth. German engineers had started designing this aircraft in April 1939, before World War II began. While American companies were perfecting better propellers and more powerful piston engines, Germany was already working on pure jet propulsion. The Me-262 had made its first jet-powered flight on July 18, 1942. By 1945, German factories had built 1,443 of these revolutionary fighters. About 300 had fought in combat and shot down 542 Allied planes. Think about that for a moment. Each Me-262 that saw combat averaged nearly 2 Allied aircraft destroyed. That's not just impressive, that's a complete redefinition of what one fighter could accomplish. The Americans weren't just looking at an advanced enemy aircraft. They were staring at proof that someone had been living in the future while everyone else was stuck in the past. The Me-262's performance numbers didn't just impress American test pilots, they broke their understanding of what aircraft could do. 540 miles per hour. That number hit like a physical blow. America's fastest fighter, the P-51 Mustang, could barely touch 420 miles per hour in perfect conditions. The Me-262 cruised 40 miles per hour faster than the Mustang's top speed. This wasn't just a speed advantage, this was an entirely different category of machine. The Me-262 could climb to 38,000 feet, while American fighters struggled to reach half that altitude, attack bomber formations, and vanish before escort fighters could even turn to intercept. But that's not all. Allied bomber crews who faced these jets described something that sounded like science fiction. A speck on the horizon would suddenly materialize into a sleek predator. 4 orange flashes would erupt from its nose. Then it would disappear, leaving only smoke trails and damaged bombers in its wake. The Me-262 had turned air combat into something resembling a video game where one player had cheat codes. It could engage any target at will and escape any threat at leisure. American pilots quickly learned that traditional dogfighting was suicide against the Me-262. You couldn't outturn something that didn't need to turn. It could just accelerate away and attack from a different angle. Speed had become the ultimate weapon, and the Me-262 had more of it than anything else in the sky. Pop open the Me-262's nose, and you'd find 4 cannons that looked like they belonged on a battleship, not a fighter plane. Each Mk-108 cannon weighed 130 pounds, more than some American aircraft engines. These weren't the familiar machine guns that American fighters carried. These aircraft-destroying monsters fired explosive shells the size of small soda cans. Here's how devastating the difference was. American fighters carried 50 caliber machine guns that fired solid bullets about the width of your thumb. The Me-262's 30mm shells were explosive projectiles wider than a silver dollar that detonated on impact. One 30mm hit could blow a hole the size of a manhole cover in a bomber's wing. A 2-second burst from all 4 cannons could literally cut a B-17 Flying Fortress in half. But the Me-262's lethality didn't stop there. Some variants carried 24 R4M unguided rockets under their wings, basically flying hand grenades that could be fired in salvos. Pilots could unleash these from 2 miles away, entirely outside the range of bomber defensive guns. Imagine being a B-17 tail gunner scanning the sky for threats when your aircraft suddenly disintegrates around you. No warning, no chance to fight back. Your attacker was already miles away and accelerating toward his next victim. American fighter pilots faced an even more frustrating reality. How do you escort bombers against an enemy that appears and disappears like a ghost? How do you protect something when you can't even catch the threat? The Me-262 had turned air combat from a contest between warriors into a demonstration of technological superiority. And in that contest, Allied aircraft weren't just outgunned, they were playing a completely different game. The wings don't stick straight out like every other fighter you've ever seen. They angle backward like a bird diving for prey. American engineers stared at those wings and scratched their heads. Straight wings were aviation 101. Every textbook said so. Every successful aircraft proved it. So why did the Germans bend their wings backward at 18.5 degrees? Here's the beautiful irony. They did it by accident. The original Me-262 design had straight wings. But the plane's balance dropped when the engines turned out heavier than expected. German engineers swept the wings back to fix the weight distribution. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Problem revolutionized. Those angled wings accidentally unlocked something incredible. They could slice through the air at speeds that would tear straight wings apart. Think of it like this. You feel massive resistance if you stick your hand out a car window at highway speed. But angle your hand like a knife blade. The air slides right past. That's precisely what the Me-262's wings were doing at 500+ miles per hour. Straight wings hit the air like a brick wall at high speeds. Shock waves form. Control surfaces stop working. Pilots lose control and die. But the Me-262's swept wings let the airflow slide along instead of slamming into them. The plane could fly safely at speeds that would destroy any American fighter. Wind tunnel tests proved what German engineers had stumbled onto. Swept wings were the key to high-speed flight. America had been building the aviation equivalent of horse-drawn carriages, while Germany had accidentally invented the sports car. Step close to a running Me-262 and you'll hear something no one had heard before 1942. No coughing pistons, no propeller buzz, just a deep, throaty roar that seemed to come from the bowels of hell itself. The Junkers UMO 004 engines looked like metallic cigars hanging under the wings, but inside those smooth casings was engineering magic that made American propulsion experts feel like cavemen discovering fire. Each engine worked like a controlled hurricane. Pure, raw thrust. No complex gearing systems like piston engines, no propeller efficiency losses. Just 1,980 pounds of force, pushing the Me-262 forward like an invisible hand. American engineers had built engines with thousands of moving parts. The Germans had created power with elegance and simplicity. But here's where the story gets tragic. These incredible engines were built like glass sculptures. Beautiful, revolutionary, and fragile as soap bubbles. 20 hours of operation. That's all they could handle before self-destructing, sometimes less. The problem wasn't engineering brilliance, it was wartime desperation. Germany lacked the special metals needed for engines running at furnace-like temperatures. They were building tomorrow's technology with yesterday's materials. Still, American experts knew they were seeing the future of flight. They had to figure out how to make it last longer than a long weekend. For all its revolutionary terror, the Me-262 had a secret that probably saved thousands of Allied lives. It was a mechanical prima donna that demanded perfect conditions to perform. The UMO 004 engines weren't just fragile, they were downright temperamental. Move the throttles too quickly, and the engine will cough, stutter, and potentially explode. German pilots needed extensive training to keep their aircraft running long enough to reach combat. During American testing at Wright Field, 2 captured Me-262s burned through 9 engines in just 20 test flights. That's nearly 1 engine failure every 2 flights. The German jets spent more time in the maintenance hangar than in the sky. But engine reliability was just the beginning of the Me-262's operational nightmares. As Allied bombing destroyed German airfields throughout 1944 and 1945, finding suitable strips became nearly impossible. By the war's end, some Me-262 units were operating from sections of the Autobahn highway system. Then there was the maintenance nightmare. Each Me-262 required hours of intensive work between flights. Complex hydraulic systems, temperamental electronics, and those fragile engines needed constant attention from skilled technicians who were increasingly hard to find in collapsing Germany. Hitler's interference made everything worse. The Führer insisted on using the Me-262 as a bomber, exactly the wrong mission for a revolutionary interceptor. Precious aircraft were wasted on ineffective ground attack missions instead of defending against Allied bomber streams. American engineers studying captured Me-262s realized something crucial. This was a thoroughbred racehorse that needed perfect conditions to run. In 1945, Germany could provide everything except perfect conditions. America's response to the Me-262 was swift, systematic, and brilliant in its simplicity. If you can't beat them, become them, but better. The most dramatic transformation happened at North American aviation, where engineers were busy perfecting their new F-86 Sabre fighter with conventional straight wings. Then, Raymond Rice saw the German swept-wing data. Rice was North America's chief engineer, a guy who lived and breathed aerodynamics, like other people breathed air. When he studied the wind tunnel results from captured German research, he knew instantly that everything had to change. The boardroom battles were legendary. Rice wanted to scrap the entire straight-wing F-86 design and start over with swept wings. Company executives thought he'd lost his mind. "You want to delay our program by a full year, spend millions more in development costs, all because the Germans bent their wings backward?" Rice's response was simple but devastating. "Look at the numbers. Straight wings will get our pilots killed." The German data was undeniable. Swept wings could delay the dangerous effects of compressibility that occurred at high speeds. Swept wings weren't optional for jets approaching the sound barrier. They were survival equipment. Rice fought and won. The F-86 was redesigned entirely with 35-degree swept wings, leading-edge slats, borrowed directly from the Me-262. And the German aircraft's entire design philosophy of speed over maneuverability. The Korean War proved Rice was a prophet. The F-86 Sabre achieved a 10-to-1 kill ratio against Soviet MiG-15s. Here's the beautiful irony. The MiG-15 was also based on captured German research, combined with British jet engine technology. 2 children of the Me-262 were dogfighting in Korean skies, and the American version was winning decisively. Boeing pulled a similar transformation with their B-47 Stratojet bomber. Straight wings? Forget everything we thought we knew. The future was swept, sleek, and German-inspired. America had gone from copying German homework to teaching the world how to build better jets. The Me-262 didn't just influence future aircraft. It became their DNA. Every modern jet owes something to this German fighter. But the connections go deeper than most people realize. Take those swept wings that looked so weird in 1945. Within 5 years, they appeared on American fighters, Soviet jets, and British bombers. Today, try finding a high-speed aircraft without them. The F-86 Sabre copied the Me-262's wing angle and added slats for better control. Result? It dominated Korean skies against MiG-15s, which were also based on German research. But wings were just the beginning. Those cigar-shaped engines hanging under the Me-262's wings, that mounting system became standard on everything from fighters to airliners, easier to maintain, replace, and design around. The 30mm cannons that shocked American pilots in 1945, they became the blueprint for every fighter weapon that followed. Bigger punch, fewer shots needed. Even the nose shape, that sharp, needle-like point that cuts through air so cleanly, shows up on modern jets from the F-22 to commercial airliners. Here's the kicker. America didn't just copy these innovations, they perfected them. German engines lasted 20 hours, American versions ran for thousands. German jets needed perfect runways. American designs could operate from grass strips. German aircraft were technological marvels, but operational nightmares. American jets were both advanced and practical. The Me-262 had shown what was possible. America figured out how to make it work. Today, every aircraft you see carries DNA from the Me-262. Swept wings on commercial airliners? Me-262 innovation. Jet engines on everything from fighters to jumbo jets? Based on German UMO 004 principles. High-speed design philosophy in modern aircraft? Established by the Me-262's revolutionary performance. The influence goes beyond hardware. North America's entire jet fighter lineage stems from copying the Me-262. Boeing's commercial success started with German swept-wing research. Even modern engine manufacturers use design principles pioneered in wartime Germany. The Me-262's technological DNA spread through American aviation like wildfire. German innovation became the foundation for American air dominance, from the Korean War to the space race, from airline travel to supersonic flight. The aircraft's greatest victory wasn't in combat over Germany. Its triumph defined what aviation would look like for the next 80 years. The truth about American reactions to the Me-262 goes beyond technical admiration. The humbling realization was that they were holding a blueprint for the future, and Germany had written it first. American engineers understood that conventional aircraft was finished. The swept that looked so strange in 1945 are now standard on performance aircraft. Engines that seem so revolutionary now power millions of flights daily. But here's what makes this remarkable. American engineers were smart enough to recognize superior technology. They saw it. Instead of dismissing German innovations or clinging to designs, they embraced it completely. They studied detail, absorbed every lesson, transformed German breakthroughs into a the F-86 Sabre, the Boeing 707, the entire jet age, on foundations laid by German engineers who dared to reimagine what aircraft. The Me-262 proved that technological don't announce themselves politely. They arrive suddenly, make everything else obsolete, everyone to adapt. Germany glimpsed the future first, but America had the wisdom to make that future its own. If this story of technological revolution blew your mind, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible aviation history. Share this with anyone who's ever wondered how we went from World War II fighters to modern jets. They need to know how one German aircraft changed everything. What other plane would you like to see covered? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Your idea might become our next deep dive into aviation's most revolutionary moments.